to go back, and review the stuff. A lot of stuff that we do in class, we're going to go through kind of quickly, and students have told me in the past it's pretty helpful to have this stuff recorded and kind of go back and go again. But I hope that you don't think of the video as a substitute for attending class. All right. So we'll cover some things today. We're going to get into the content. Cameron, are you here for the whole class period?
Yes.
Let's begin by introducing the TA. This is Cameron Smith.
Hello. My name's Cameron. I've been a TA for this class for a couple semesters now. I like VBA. I just spent a couple of months this summer actually working for a money management company, just doing spreadsheet stuff for them. So I do have some experience. I will.
You didn't email me once for help.
No,
You got
I probably
it down?
should have.
You've got it down.
There's one or two things that I might need your help with. Get real close to the finish now.
Okay.
But the email address, if you want to get in touch with me, byuvbata@gmail.com.
That's on Learning Suite, which I published the class literally less than 10 minutes ago. So you've been looking for it, wondering what's going to happen in class. I didn't even know what was happening in class until earlier today. So,
right.
But that's most of it.
If you email me anywhere else, I will promptly send you an email back saying, please email me at byuvbata. I won't answer your question because I don't like to mix my work and personal emails. I will try to get back to you. If you email me between business hours, 9 to 5-ish, then I will try to get back to you within a couple of hours, I would say. I do have kind of a full schedule myself, but I'll try to fit in answers to emails between classes and things.
He is a full-time student, after all.
Yes, I am a student just like you. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Office hours, I will try to post them by the end of the week. They will be held over there in 290, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
There's a room right next door. It's the mirror of that room. But yeah, please come to me for help. Practice a lot. It'll be fine.
Here we are on day one. Any questions for Cameron? Let's talk about the book. Oh, how do we talk about the book? If we go to Learning Suite, there's Chrome. Learning Suite. I worked so hard to get that thing put into the library's system, so that you could find it, and they changed it. Really, the library they totally changed it. They said, that doesn't work so well the way you put it in. We're going to move it over here. And I said, okay, but when they moved it, they got rid of the link that actually showed you where you could get a hold of the content. So let's just go ahead and take a look at Learning Suite. Learning Suite here. Current class, here it is, MBA 614, 540. Let's look at the schedule. All right. So here's first day of fall semester. We're covering chapter 1 today. Here is the book. Here's the link to the book. So if you follow this link, it will take you to My Educator. The My Educator platform is going to allow us to do some really neat things. The biggest advantage to working with them for this book is that when I give you a homework assignment, it will allow you to submit the homework assignment, get immediate feedback, and then make another attempt at that submission. All of your submissions, projects, and homework, you will get 2 attempts at, because we'll talk about that in detail today. You get 2 attempts at that submission. So you submit it, it does this automatic grading thing, you get some feedback, and you go, oh, I missed that part, go fix it, submit it again. So that's what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting for you being able to learn from that feedback. That's the big thing that we get from My Educator. I knew that we could do this with My Educator. For years, I've just been doing the homework. We didn't have a textbook. The textbook I was using was extraordinarily expensive, and it was okay. And then I found this book. So this is Teach Yourself Microsoft Excel Programming 2000. Excel 2000 Programming in 21 Days. Sounds like kind of an old book. It is. I called up the guy who wrote it. First of all, I looked on Amazon. It got really good reviews. I called up, it's out of print. I called up the guy who wrote it. His name's Matthew something. Matthew Harris. I said, Matthew, you still like VBA? He's all, yeah. How about bringing your book out of retirement? So we went through the process to get the copyright back from Pearson that had the copyright. And then he updated it from 2000 to 2016 and then took it to My Educator. And then he added, this is 21 chapters, he added another 20 chapters. Like 41 chapters. Listen, every time I call this guy, for whatever reason, I got to think, okay, I need an extra half hour just because the guy likes to talk. And he likes to write, too. So the book is actually supposed to be $99 at My Educator. And I said, that's too much. They said, well, I'm not even using all the chapters. They said, well, how about if we restrict some of the chapters so your students don't get it all, and then they pay less, like $70, $69 for just chapters they're using. I said that'd be great. So they did that, but then they didn't restrict any of the chapters. So you're getting the full book for $69. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal. And then it's like lifetime access. So when you get out, if your job anything else, there's an example there. You can go back and do that. Okay, so I'm really pleased. I told the guy, you're not going to make very much money on this because I don't know what other college is going to adopt it besides me. And he was all, you know what? I love this language so much. I'm just going to do it, and whatever we get, we get. I said, great. So that's the book. Oh, we go ahead and follow that link. I'll go to that book. Take a look at it. myeducator.com. That's me. Somewhere here we've got various books. Oh, I'm on the right one. This is program, so chapter 1. So here it is. Putting it together, recording your first macro. Kind of takes you by the hand and leads you through it. And there really are lots and lots of chapters. There's 41 chapters. We're going to do a bunch of them, but we're not going to do them all. Here's the great thing. Every time he said, hey, I want to do this other chapter, I was like, okay, but if you do that chapter, make sure you go in this direction. So it's been kind of nice. I've been able to at least guide him in the direction that I think would be helpful. It really is. Well, he's weird. Smart. He was a professor at Berkeley. He taught programming at Berkeley. He lives in the Silicon Valley. I guess he's retired now or whatever. But he was a professor at Berkeley and taught programming for a lot of years. And anyways, okay, that was it. So that's any questions on the book? Any questions on how to get back to Prezi? Here's the book. Okay. Oh, here's my teaching philosophy. I take my teaching philosophy from Galileo Galilei. You cannot teach anybody anything. That's a great philosophy, I think, as a teacher. You can only help them discover it within themselves. The truth of it, folks, is I don't really think you're going to discover VBA within yourselves. I really don't. But the first part of it I agree so thoroughly with that I just had to go with the whole thing. Here's what it comes down to, is that you're going to learn this stuff by doing it. And so it's like, I feel like it's my job to compel you to do this. To try to do different things and to get feedback and to do it and to do it and to do it. And so that's going to be the program that we take. We'll talk about life mission for a minute. Here's kind of the weird thing. What you really want in your life to learn what you need to do is you want a mentor. You want someone who will mentor you. I'm not a mentor. I'm a professor. In this role, I'm a professor. The difference between a mentor and a professor is the professor comes to you and says, here's what I think you need to know. I don't know anything about what you're trying to accomplish in life, but you know what? I'm so good at this stuff, I think everyone should know it. And so I'm going to tell you what you need to know. What a mentor will do is he will say to you, well, what are you trying to accomplish in life? What's your life? This is a great projector. You can barely even see this. What's your life's mission? What are you trying to accomplish in life? And whether it's exactly what I know or not, I will help you to learn what you need to learn to accomplish your life's mission. Kind of a weird thing. I had this strange experience when I was sitting about where you are. I think it was in this very room. It was a room just like this. It wasn't this very room. I was in the accounting junior core. How many of you are accountants? I was in the accounting junior core. And I forget what we were doing. Actually, I think we were doing something with entity relationship diagrams or something. And I had this epiphany. What's an epiphany? Like a sudden realization of eternal truth. It's like, oh, wow. I was learning I was here for the first time as a junior. For the first time, I was like, I'm learning something. And someday someone's going to pay me more money because I know what I'm learning right now. I was a junior before I figured that out. The idea that that's what college was for never occurred to me before. But I was still kind of one step short. I had this realization where I realized, oh, this stuff I'm learning in college is going to help me get a good job. Someone's going to pay me because I know this stuff. But I want you to think one level higher than that for your education. Instead of just thinking, what's this going to do for my career, I'm going to think, what do you need? What education do you need to fulfill your God-given mission? Think about it. I think God has put you here for a reason. I don't mean in my class, but I mean on earth. To accomplish something great. And someday you're going to be really old. You'll be lying on your deathbed. And you're going to wonder, is the world a better place because I was here? And I hope that you're able to answer that question, yes. So I want you to think about what education do you need to accomplish your life's mission. It may be that VBA is a part of your life's mission. It may not. That's okay. I'm glad to teach you VBA anyway. But you're here at a great university, and I'm going to encourage you to take advantage of what we have going on here, not just for what you need for your career, but think about what does God want you to accomplish in life. And fundamentally, I believe that's what should drive all education. It doesn't work in a communal education setting. You all have different life's missions. How can I teach you just what you need to know for your life's mission? So we do the best that we can. So it's kind of up to you to be able to seek that out. What would be really great is if you could find something that, something that you enjoy doing, that you're good at, that someone will pay you at, that will be fulfilling your life's mission. If you can find a career that kind of hits on all four of those things, that's the sweet spot. So anyway, as professors, we really like to talk and we like to think, and I don't have much time to tell you, kind of life, career, life counseling, except today. After that, it's going to be all VBA in this class. Slideshow that. The robe. Why are you wearing a robe? It turns out that it used to be everywhere. All faculty wore the robe all the time. It wasn't just for... In fact, the term graduation robe is it's a new term. It wasn't ever called the graduation robe. It was just an academic robe. It wasn't until about the 1940s that the professor in the United States said, why do we wear the robe? It's hot, they itch, you have to dry clean them. Why are we doing this? World War II was on, and it was like, there are more important things in life than the robe. And so professors kind of throughout the country, and mostly throughout the world, there are some schools in Europe where professors still wear the robe all the time. Oxford, for one, they still wear the robe. They're kind of steeped in tradition. They just said, you know what, we're not going to wear the robe anymore. I wasn't a professor. I didn't make that decision. And there I was. My first professorship was at Tulane University. Tulane University, they have their graduation they hold in the Superdome. Big place they have football. And they have that thing scripted down to the minute. It is exactly the same. The first time I was there, it was gripping. The second time I was there, I was like, this sounds somewhat familiar. The third time I was there, I was like, okay, I know exactly what's coming next, and this is getting pretty boring. But remember, I had an accounting degree. And so, this was before I didn't have a smartphone. What do you do while they're handing out, like 1,000 degrees? You got to think of something. And I was thinking, this robe costs over $600. Thinking, if I wear it once a year, probably 30 years, it costs me like $32 every time I put it on. That's the way accountants think. Every time I put this on, it's $32. And I had kind of a low-level epiphany. It was, if I just wore this twice as often, I would cut the per-use cost in half. And at first I thought, maybe I should wear it to church. It's a pretty nice robe. And I thought, no, I'm just going to wear it to the first day of class. I just started wearing it to the first day of class. It's like 2 semesters. Tripling my utility out of this car. And when I came to BYU, I was like, should I keep it up? And I said, yeah, what the heck. Because when you first start wearing the robe, you get really weird looks. Now, everyone, my colleagues, they know I wear the robe. It's not that unusual. I showed up to class the first day here at BYU, wore the robe. That was fine. Second day, I came in normal suit, tie, suit, whatever. It was a few minutes early, and there was a guy sitting in the front row right about there. He said, hey, Professor Allen, where's the robe? I said, I was just going to wear it the first day. I said, oh, I liked the robe. I said, really? He nodded. I said, I liked the robe too. I asked the class, how many think I should wear the robe every day? It was unanimous. Wear the robe every day. They want me to wear the robe. I want to wear the robe. Why wouldn't I wear the robe? The reason I wouldn't wear the robe is because of Hugh Nibley. What did Hugh Nibley say? Yeah, so here's Hugh Nibley. He's like the great white father of the religion department. And he's asked to give the invocation at commencement. They're there in the Mary Center. I think before they had the Mary Center. It might be in the Smithfield House. Anyway, they're there. He gets up to give the invocation. He was a really flowery prayer, Dear God, look down upon us from your high and holy habitation, upon your humble servants. Look across the mountain's grandeur to we lowly servants. We apologize for coming before you adorned in the robes of the false priesthood. And he goes on and gives, normal prayers he ever gave. And afterwards, people are going, did he say what I think he said? And he gets questions for the next 2 years. People ask him, what did you mean? He said, finally, the university invites him to give a forum address, a devotional, so he can explain what he meant by the robes of the false priesthood. And so you can look up that devotional address. Apparently, they're like apostate temple robes. I mean, their origin goes back to the Masons, and I don't know. But I really did think about wearing it to church. But then there was something about wearing the church, the robes, the false priesthood, the form of the true priesthood, that just, there was kind of a cognitive dissonance there for me. So that's why I wear the robe. I keep it in my office. I throw it on before I come to class. And it's mostly so when I'm not in class, I'm walking around the hall, you won't recognize me. I'll be like undercover. Go see the TA. Oh, speaking of the TA, I think that's the end of the little presentation here. Let's talk about my office hours, the department. My department secretary requires me to post office hours. Let's take a look at the syllabus. Distribute the syllabus. She says, what are your office hours? I don't know. I got some office hours. And I just pick some out of the air. Like an hour before this class would be a great time for office hours. So I set up office hours. Is it the same right here? Yeah, Wednesday, 2 to 3 p.m. My office hours. Folks, I am in my office a lot. I'm usually here by 6:30 in the morning. And I usually eat lunch in my office. I got a salad, and I'm working on stuff, and I'm eating lunch. And every year, I am thrilled to have you come by anytime I'm in my office. Why do I even have to have office hours? I don't know. I'm in my office so much, you can come by anytime. The department makes me put office hours. And I do try to be in my office during my office hours, but I'm there a lot. So someone from this class, halfway through the semester, is going to come, Professor, I'm really struggling. I can never make it to your office hours. What do you mean you can't make it to my office hours? Well, there are only 2 hours a week. No, come anytime. If I'm busy working on something that I can't, get away, I'll tell you to go away. I don't feel bad about telling you to go away, but at least come by. And I will almost always set aside what I'm working on and work with it. You get that? I don't know how to drive this home any better, except if I put lots and lots and lots of office hours in there, then I would feel like I need to really be there all those times. I couldn't, decide, I'm going to go get a smoothie or something, which would be really uncharacteristic for me to do this. I couldn't think of anything else to go and do. A couple other things in the syllabus that are really important. Course description, prerequisites, learning outcomes, grading. None of this is important. Teaching philosophy. Where's the important stuff? Policies. All these university policies here are important. They're not the ones that I'm bringing in. First one is here. It's nested under here under homework and projects. There are 2 kinds of assignments I'm going to have you do. Homework and projects. Homework is easy. It's meant to be really easy. Kind of just get in and do the material. Typically, the homework is going to be we'll do a new topic. We're going to do a new topic on Wednesday. There'll be some homework that I'm going to have you do. It'll be due Wednesday night. The stuff we're learning in class on Wednesday is going to be due Wednesday night. The homework is supposed to be really easy. The idea behind the homework is that you'll start it before you come to class. You'll take a look at it and you'll think, okay, you might even read the chapter before class. But the idea, what I want you to do with that homework is I want you to look at that homework assignment and even make an attempt at doing it to engage the material. And then we'll talk about it in class, and then it'll be due that night. These homework projects, you can totally think these as, I'm going to work together with my buddy on this homework project. We're going to do it together. Your fingers have to type the code. But it's totally fine to talk about it, come up with a common solution. It would be academic dishonesty if you worked together, one of you did it, and then you emailed it to your partner, and you both don't do that. Your fingers have to do the typing, okay? Then that's okay. Homework, I want you to collaborate. I really want you to collaborate before class on the homework. You can collaborate after class too, of course. But the idea is engage the homework, get started with the material before you come to class, so I'm not starting from ground zero on that topic with you. Is it the end of the world if I start with ground zero with you? No, it's not the end of the world. But your experience will be better in this class if you'll start that homework before you come to class. Okay? Projects, there's 6 of them. They're pretty well equally spaced throughout the term. They are individual endeavors. In this course, projects are a major way in which students demonstrate. You can't even read that because it's so small and the projector is so light. No, that's not. Ooh, plagiarism. There's a whole plagiarism thing. That's the university just puts it in automatically. I don't even know what it says. But it used to be, back in the olden days, we would have to make our syllabi, like in Microsoft Word. And the most commonly plagiarized paragraph was the paragraph on plagiarism. Who's got a good paragraph on plagiarism? So I'll copy that and put it in. Now, you don't have any choice. It just goes in automatically. Okay. It's a major way that you're going to demonstrate mastery of the content. Projects are individual activities. Students may not work together to produce a solution to the project. You're free to discuss any of the topics in the class. Now, the project is dealing with something called an array. We'll talk about arrays, what they are. You are totally free to talk about arrays in any context other than the project. But as soon as you talk about details of the project, you are making a breach of academic ethics. These projects you work on by yourself. To ask about specifics of the project, there are exactly 3 people that you can talk to about specifics. You may have a question. I'm struggling with this very topic, and I'm going to ask someone in the context of this assignment. They are Cameron, me, and God. Those are the 3 people that you can talk to about this. Now, who could you talk to about? I just don't really grasp this idea of an array. Who could you talk to about that? Anybody. Preferably someone besides me. I mean, at that level. Come and see me. But on that level, hopefully you're working together to understand the concepts, but in the context of the assignment. So this is kind of tough, folks. I want you to realize, here's what I'm saying. Some of the stuff you turn in this class, you're allowed to work on together. It's the homework. The projects, that's a big no-no. Last semester, I had a bunch of students on the very last project collaborate. It was a really uncomfortable situation. How did I know that they collaborated? They turned in solutions that were extraordinarily similar to each other. In fact, I kind of stumbled across it. 2 students said, hey, I'm having a problem right here. You can help with this code. They emailed it to me, which I really prefer you come in and see me when you have that kind of problem. Because it's so much better for me to sit down with you and say, okay, what are you thinking about here? What I can work with you. But occasionally, students will email me, and I will begrudgingly answer their emails. With details about the code, although I really prefer you code. And 2 people submitted exactly the strange code, exactly the same. I'm having trouble with this part right here. Looking at it, why did you? That's a really weird thing to do. Don't do that. Someone else did exactly the same thing, and I thought that's really unusual. So I looked at both their submissions and went, oh man, these are like almost copies of each other. And then I thought, if I'm going to punish these 2, I better find out who else is doing it, and it was quite a bit. I reduced their final grade by a full grade. Reported them to the honor code office, and gave their names. The dean wants me to give their names to the dean's office, so if we've got people who are doing that kind of stuff in multiple classes, they'll be able to know what's going on. I wished I could have done more to make these students' lives difficult, because they made an unusual amount of paperwork for me. It was terrible. Don't do that. That's the thing on project. Hopefully, I'll remember when we get to our first project to review this with you that it's really important. Okay. Let's work on this stuff. All right. Let's take a look at the schedule. We should go to student. Okay, so you're going to look at the course textbook. Add your information. Okay, so right here. Let's look at this link right here. So it turns out that to do this class, I see a number of Mac computers out here. Not as many as I normally see. A number of Mac computers. You're going to need the Windows version of Excel to be able to do this class. turns out the Mac version of Excel has VBA in it, but the editing tools are archaic. You can't even search. Like, here you're looking at this text and saying, I want to be able to look at this text and search for something. You can't, there's no way to search. There are some things you simply can't do in the Mac version. And when you ask Microsoft about that, they say, yeah, buy the Windows version and develop in Windows, and then your Mac users can use it, but don't try to develop it on the Mac. At some point, they may improve the tools. And there are several things that we're going to do that kind of require other parts of the Windows operating system. But here's the good news. You can get that all for free. So you can get the Windows version of Excel. The university's got some kind of license. You can get the Windows version. But you got to have Windows. And that's going to cost you, unless you're in my class. So my department has a deal with Microsoft. We pay some amount of money to Microsoft so that we can give the students a copy of Windows. But you got to sign up. And that's how you sign up. Go to that link, give me your information, and then here by Friday, I will process that list of people, and you'll get an email saying, here's where you go to get your free Microsoft software. There's lots of free stuff that they do. Okay, but you got to sign up. It's called DreamSpark. It used to be called the Microsoft MSDNAA, Microsoft Development Network Academic Initiative. DreamSpark's a better name. I'm going to say that. So you can go fill that out right now. Okay, so that's that. And I think, it seems like it's a little somewhere. Oh yeah, there's some. When you follow that link, there's a little more details at the top. There's even a free way to do virtualization that I point you to when you get there as well. Oh, there's one more really important thing that I forgot to tell you about on the syllabus. My heart has been. I don't know where I put it. It should be grading policy. Grading policy. Assignments. Probably the course information. Every year I've got. Here we go. Okay, here it is. Every year I got some students who, try as they might, they just don't perform well on the exams. The exams in this class they're different than exams you may have taken other places. Memorization is not going to help you a lot on these exams. A big part of what I'm going to give you on these exams is here's a block of code, VBA code, which we've talked about and gone over in class. What does it do? After this runs, what will be in cell A1? It'll be like A through J choices. Pick one of those. If you can read the code, there's only one thing that's going to be there. You pick the right one, fill it, and move on. Some people really struggle with this. And so I thought, how can I give folks an alternate way through this course to kind of reduce the stress of this testing anxiety? And I'm trying something new this semester to see how it works. I'll say, listen, you can skip the exams. In fact, this also works for those. How many of you already have a job? There's a few of you here going, I got to get this. I need the credits for this course. I already have a job. I'm done with school. This might be appealing to you as well. So here's the normal. There's assignments, there's exams, there's projects. 93% is an A, 90% A minus. All these normal cutoffs. But you can say, you know what? I'm gonna come to class. I'm going to score at least 70% on the projects and the homework. And the lower threshold, if you do that, will be a B minus. And if you do better on the projects and the homework, you can score up to a B plus. That's without taking either the final exam or the midterm exam. You can kiss the exams goodbye. But you're not going to get an A by kissing the exams goodbye. Best you can do is a B plus. You don't have to decide this now. You can decide up until the second to the last day of class, our penultimate day of class. You can make that decision. But what that means is, in fact, I'm saying to qualify for this, you've got to hit 20 of our 26 sessions. I really want it to be more than that. But you have lives. Some of you are actually out there trying to get jobs and really flying back. I really don't want to deal with I really have to miss, would it be okay? Yeah, you got 6 misses. So you've got to hit 20 out of the 26, and then you qualify for this B. How many of you are going, that whole B plus is looking really attractive to me? Just checking. There'll be more of you after the first midterm. History, I've never done this before, and so I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for it. It seems like a weird thing to do, but I have tenure. So it might result in a really uncomfortable discussion with some dean, but it's not going to result in me losing my place. Okay, so that means that we need a way to record attendance starting today. And so if you go to Learning Suite, there's a class attendance link. Follow that link, and I will put up the quote that will let you have the information you need to correctly answer that link. So I got to find that quote. Hopefully it's still in my list of recently used documents. Yeah, I haven't updated. It'll be okay. You're the only class I'm teaching this semester. Looks like it's not in my recently used documents. So let's check it out. Open other workbooks. Browse. Downloads.
It's not the founding quotes.
It is. Where'd you find it? Did you see it over here?
Yeah, it's on the, right above.
Oh, great. Cancel that. Founding quotes. Oh, it's on my desk.
We only have one
So hold on a second. That's not the one.
There we go.
That's the one. Religion and good morals are the only solid foundation of solid foundation of public liberty and happiness. Really interesting to read what the founding fathers wrote about the importance it is for religion and having high morals. They really believe that this form of government that they created couldn't survive long without virtue generally in the people. If their predictions are right, we're in big trouble. So, can you answer that question now? You're gonna put your net ID. Don't use your student number. I want your net ID. Just we have the same thing. Then what I'll do is at the very beginning of class, I'll put up a different quote each day, and then you're just going to tell me the year and the person, and then I'll know you were. So what happens if someone comes late? Like halfway through the class, someone comes in and says to you, "Hey, what's the quote for today?" What would you do?
Email.
You give them the quote. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So as long as the quote is coming in kind of during class time, I'm okay with it. If the quote comes in, I get a timestamp whenever you submit this. So if the quote comes in, late tonight, no credit for that. You got to make the quote happen during class. I'm going to only put it up at the beginning of class, but then you can share that with your buddy. There's something else I was going to say. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
You might have said this, but I just want a little bit of clarification on the exams. So if we do the midterm and we do really well in the midterm, can we elect not to take the final? And then
Here's the thing. So there's two ways I'll evaluate your grade. One is normal, right? 90%, 93% on everything, whatever. Exams. If you have qualified by the end of the semester, if you've got 20 of these quotes where you attended, you put them in during the right time, 20 out of the 26, we'll have 26. If you have 20 out of the 26, then you qualify for a second way to do your grade. You've got to tell me which one you want me to do. There'll be an assignment where you tell me which one to do. But yeah, you can take the midterm, you can take the final. Well, you have to tell me before you take the final. So, yeah, you can decide before you take the final that you're not going to take the final, even though you've taken the midterm. That's okay.
But the midterm would still count towards our grade?
Midterm would not count towards your grade. So the way that you'll be evaluated is either by your performance on homework and projects, if you have enough attendance to qualify for that, or I don't care about attendance, you don't have to be here at all, and if your performance is high enough on the assignments and the exams, you'll just get whatever grade you get.
Gotcha.
So what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to prevent kind of a setting where I can have someone like totally check out of class, only do a little bit of work, and like still get a B+. So you've got to come and be here. Yeah.
Take some exams, can you later decide if you want to do another path?
If you take both exams, can you later decide? The answer is you can take the midterm and later decide, but you've got to tell me before the final exam. Final exam will be during the final exam period. But you have to tell me before that. It's actually one of the homework assignments. I hope you get full credit on that homework assignment. All you have to do is say, I think I want to take the grade, the normal way, or Cameron.
So I was just checking on the book, on the roll, looks like there's like 6 people signed up already, and one of them used their ID number. Please use your net ID. There was a big problem with that last semester. There were like 10 people that just their grades never synced in the Learning Suite because the grades are auto-graded through my educator, and I have to transfer them all over. So just as I was looking at that, one person has their number in there instead of their net ID.
Yeah, so when you sign up for the textbook, there's a question there. What's your university identifier? And I think I put a note there that says this is your net ID, but you might forget that. Anyway, so just plug in your net ID there, and I think there's a process we can go through to change it. I think you can change it. I don't think I can change it, but I think you can change it. So if you put your student number in there, come see me and we'll figure out how to get that changed. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
So that homework assignment, the final exam, determine if you want to grade one or
Yep.
explain to them either do a final or a final project.
Oh, you know what? That's like the old way that I was thinking about doing this. I gotta update that. In fact, most of the homework still need to be updated, like pointing to last semester's book. In fact, this afternoon I tried to do the first homework assignment, and it didn't work. They've changed something at my educator on the way that the stuff submits, and so I got to figure that out. In fact, let's just take a look at it. So let's come here. So here's like a link. Here's the web query assignment. Let me go to follow that link, and then it says link pending. So I'm hoping I can do Wednesday. So I'm hoping I'll be able to get this up by the end of the day today, sometime today, so that you'll have tomorrow and Wednesday to be able to do that assignment. It's a really simple assignment. It really is just make a web query. If you haven't made a web query before, Google is your friend. Go ahead.
What about those of us that have Macs and don't have the Windows
Yes.
stuff for Wednesday?
I'll have to give you some kind of Mac grandfather clause in there.
Okay.
So yeah, that means you. Let's see. Wait a minute.
Use a lab.
Actually, no. This one. No. If you go to like one of the lab computers, yeah, go to the lab computer. That'd make your life harder and my life easier. Anything that makes your life harder but my life easier, I'm in favor of that. If it makes your life a lot harder and my life a little bit easier, I'm still in favor. In case you're wondering. All right. So I'll get that posted. So yeah, the rest of don't try to work ahead yet, because I got to get these. I got to figure out why they're not submitting them. Okay, but let's talk about what are we covering on the first day. It's chapter 1. Kind of an introduction. So let's just kind of dive in. So let's go ahead and open up Excel. Folks, this is going to work for you. Kind of, it doesn't matter what version of Excel you have as long as it's older than Excel 2007. Newer. Thank you. As long as the number is higher. That's what I mean to say. The number is higher. 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, you should all be good for this. Don't try this in 2003. This is not going to happen. You want to save changes? Sure, I'll save changes. I'm just going to open up a new... Should we try to get the lights a little bit? Should we get the mood lighting going? Follow things along. Oh, no, go back. Oh, wait, I'm on the stairs. Go back. Thank you. All right, let's do a blank workbook. Oh, blank workbook. I don't want to open new blank workbook. Okay, so this class, some people think about this class as the super advanced Excel class, and that's not a bad way to think about this class. We are specifically going to be learning the language VBA. Stands for Visual Basic for Application. The title of the class is Spreadsheet Automation, but the language we're going to learn is VBA. we're going to learn how to do great and wonderful things. You'll be the wizards. That's the other thing for the robe. I'm turning you into wizards. And you'll be able to do amazing things. Here's an example. I had one student come up. I love these stories because I get them pretty often. Students will come back to me after their internship. The guy was on an internship at either Federal Express or American Express, some express place. And he was given a job in his internship. It was to kind of do this thing. They threw his whole internship to do this. It was this mind-numbing spreadsheet task. It's the reason that they hire interns, is to get people to do the work that no human wants to do. Hire an intern to do it. And he's just going, this is terrible. I'm going to automate. If you get my class, I can automate this. I'll record myself doing some stuff, and then we'll, automate it. He did his whole internship in 2 weeks. Like, done. What do you want me to do next? And, his direct supervisor said, well, could you take what you did for this and extend it in this way? And then that person's supervisor saw what he was doing. During his internship, he made, some kind of little application in Excel that is like adopted broadly throughout Federal Express or American. It was some Express. I think it was American Express. At the end of his internship, he actually makes a presentation to C-level executives. I think the CEO of American Express was there, but he was maybe one level down from the CEO. He's an intern, making this presentation with these really high-level executives, and he said, when I turn this thing on and let it go, he said their chins just hit the floor. I'm sure that was figurative, he said. But absolutely amazed me with what he was able to do after one semester. Was he my most bright student? No. He was a pretty bright student, but I'm going to teach you how to do things that immediately people in the field where you're going, they have no idea that Excel can do this. They have no idea that it really isn't that hard. And it's absolutely amazing. That's where we're headed. The whole idea is, the first thing is to automate anything that's repetitive in Excel. Don't repeat it, automate. I'll show you how to do that. We'll start with that today. But we're also going to show how to connect to external data sources. You've got some corporate database you want to pull data in from, we can just have Excel reach out and get it directly. You've got data that's on a password-protected website. You need to kind of log in and go to a few pages and then start pulling this data in. I'll teach you how to do that. It's part of what we do in this class. And we're at this really interesting point in the history of business that companies totally now get the idea of VBA. They're, wow, this is an extraordinarily valuable skill to have. And almost no university teaches it. And so this is going to be some kind of crazy advantage that you have for your other interns that you're kind of competing against to get the full-time offer. You think the guy at American Express got the full-time offer? Yeah. Think he accepted it? No, he had lots of other things to choose from. It's almost kind of like you want that story to end happily ever after, so now he's, division supervisor somewhere. But no, he said, no, I think I'm going somewhere else. He had the options. Okay. Here's the very first thing. Go to your developer tab. Just open up your developer. You don't have a developer tab? Is your Excel broken or deficient? No. Developer tab is there. It's just invisible. Here's the thing, folks. There is so much raw power at your disposal. When does class get out? We started at 3:30. So we've got like 25 minutes ago. The first year I taught here at BYU, it was before we had the addition here on the business school, so a lot of our business school classes were taught elsewhere on campus. I was teaching the JKB. It seems so strange to me that they ring bells over there at the ends of class. That seems so weird to me. That's what they do. I taught 2 classes over there. One of them ended when the bell rang. The other one was halfway through when the bell rang. And about halfway through the semester, the students realized that every time that bell rang, I was confused for a moment. I wonder, is class over or not? And they colluded. When the bell rings, they packed up their equipment and walked out. They were almost all gone before I realized we had 20 minutes to go of class. And at first I was all, hey! And I thought, hey, I got an extra 20 minutes. I'm okay with that. I can't do that every day, but. Okay. So, without the bell, so I have a hard time pulling that off. Plus, it's the only class I teach this semester, so I know that big hand's got to be on the 9 when class is over. So. All right, so you got to get your developer tab. There's so much raw power available to you in VBA, they don't want mere mortals playing with it. And so the developer tab just isn't there. Let me show you how to bring the developer tab up. Anyone on Excel 2007? Just check. Okay, so it'll be the same for everyone else. Go to the file menu, and then choose Options down here. File Options. Now you've got this one here, Customize Ribbon. Customize the ribbon. Customize. And over here, you've got a developer tab that's unchecked. Just go ahead and check that, say OK, and you're in good shape. It just brings up the developer tab. You may find it strange that you can uncheck like your home tab. Why would you do that? You don't need the home tab anymore. Just uncheck that home tab. Well, maybe your roommate walked away from his computer and it's like April 1st or something. And you've got April Fool's joke. Take away his home tab. That would be a sin, though. Even on April Fool's Day, that'd be a sin. You have to repent. Then again, I encourage repentance, so I'm not sure. Anyway, that should give you the developer tab. The developer tab is going to give you the tools that you need to be able to work with Visual Basic. All right. Now that we've got the developer tab open, we're going to begin just with recording ourselves doing something. Ooh. In the might have been the early 80s, late 70s or early 80s, Apple computer comes out with the Apple, I'm not quite sure where it was. There was a program called VisiCalc. It was the very first spreadsheet program. It was not very capable by today's spreadsheet program standard. It had rows, it had columns, you could put a formula that referenced other cells, that was it. And we were impressed with it. It was like amazing. You could build this whole spreadsheet model, change the number up here at the beginning, and everything else changes. Oh. It was its successor, SuperCalc, combined with the Apple II computer. You don't remember the Apple II computer. It was before the invention of the mouse. Imagine an Apple computer with no mouse. That's what this was. But it was the combination of SuperCalc and the Apple II that made businesses, for the very first time, look at the personal computer and think, this could be useful. And we started using spreadsheet software in business. And we found out that by the end of the month, at the end of every month, we did the same thing over and over again. We could almost memorize the keystrokes that we would have to type at the end of the month. And someone came up with a great idea. I don't want to memorize the keystrokes. Instead, let me have the computer memorize the keystrokes. And that was the birth of the macro. Initially, it was just memorized keystrokes. You didn't have to worry about the mouse, right? You didn't have to worry about what the mouse was doing. It was only the keyboard, all you were working with. And so, literally, you would say, I want to record a macro, and I'd say, great, what cell do you want to put the macro in? You'd give it a cell, and it would just, you'd hit a key, you'd hit the F, and put an F. You hit the Alt F, and we put like %F there, and we hit the space, we put a space, and it would just put a keystroke into each one. And that's the way macros were until 1995. In 1995, Microsoft said, instead of recording the keystrokes, let's use a computer language to record the actions that you've done and write a computer program for you. And that was the birth of what we refer to now, not a keyboard macro, but as an application macro. Does anyone know the name of the language, the very first language that Microsoft used to record macros as application macros? Anyone? It was called Visual Basic for Applications. It's exactly the same language that we're learning today. And the language has made some advances since 1995, but it is largely the same. It's amazing. I mean, to think that there's a language that was introduced in 95 that is like still current, and powerful and useful. And that's what we're learning. Okay, so that's the idea. We got lots of stuff that we can play with over here. We'll play with most of this, maybe most of it, maybe half of it by the end of the semester. let's look at this one right here, record macro. First of all, let's decide what we're going to do. Here's what I'd like to do. I would like to record a macro that creates a new sheet and then puts information in a particular place on that sheet. You're just kind of like getting a form set up. Something I've got to build off and on, assign that to a macro. Maybe make some things bold and lets me off kind of at the right place where I'm going to need to start. Something like this. That's where we're headed. And so to do that, on my developer tab, I'm going to choose record macro. Actually, I can go ahead and click record macro. I want to do a little bit more thinking before I say OK. Actually, probably before I even get this far. All right, before we get this far. Before we even start, we want to think of two things. Listen. Anytime I record a macro, I want to say, I'm writing a program, something that the user is going to run. I want to think to myself, where should the user be when they run this macro? And where do I want the active cell to leave off when the macro is done running? And whatever the answer to those two questions are, that's what I've got to do when I start. And so I'm going to start off by saying, wherever I want the user to be, that's where I'm going to be when I start recording. And then where I want the active cell to end up, that's where I'm going to make sure it ends up when I'm done recording. Now, since we're making a brand new sheet, it doesn't really matter where we are, so that's okay. But I will kind of think, I'm going to put some, I'll probably put some labels in here. Maybe I'll put customer number, date, complaint, maybe some kind of complaint processing thing. Complaint, source, and resolution. I'll put those words in there. I'll make them bold, and then I will leave I want the active cell to leave off right there next to customer number. That's the idea. Okay, so I'm now ready to start recording the macro. Developer tab, record macro, and ask me for the name. Name of the macro, I'm just going to call it make complaint. No spaces. Name of the macro must start with a letter, can be any combination of letters, numbers, and the underscore character. So no spaces, no periods, no minus signs. If you try to violate that, it'll let you know straight away. Shortcut key. There's a shortcut key. Make complaint. We'll do Control-C for complaint. Wait a minute. Control-C sounds vaguely familiar. What does Control-C do?
Copy.
Not anymore, it doesn't. Now it runs this macro. You see why they don't want mere mortals playing with this? And you definitely don't want my mom trying this. You will override the base functionality of Excel. So instead, I'm going to put a capital C in there, and watch, just like magic, by putting a capital C in there, it changes the shortcut key to Control plus Shift plus C. So far as I know, it doesn't do anything, at least I never use it. That'll be good for this. Yeah?
So if you do that, it'll only change it for Excel, right? It would still work other places on it.
Only change it for Excel, and it will only change it while this workbook is open. Well, that depends on where we store the macro. That's kind of the next thing. We've got to decide where we're going to put this macro. We've got three choices. We're going to put it in this workbook, which is what we're going to do almost every time we record a macro in this class, except for today. We'll put the code right into the workbook. That way, when you move that workbook somewhere else, the code goes with it. And so, you've got a button that does something on this particular workbook, that's what it would do. Or, if this is something where you say, I need this to work on any workbook, then I could put it in my personal macro workbook. When I record a macro into the personal macro workbook, it stays on this machine, but it's always available regardless of what other workbook I have open. So if you've got something that you're going to say, I always want this to be available, put it in the personal macro workbook. Or you can store it in a new workbook. You'll make a brand new workbook just to hold the code that it's going to record. I hesitate to put it in the personal macro workbook, even though I'd like you to see it there. Let me tell you the personal macro workbook, and you can decide if you want to put it there or not for this example. It won't matter for what we're doing where you put it.
Can you go back and change that later, where it starts?
You can move, so it's going to record the macro in one of these places. You can move that macro somewhere else.
Okay.
It's not through it's nothing like this to change it, but you can change it. It turns out the macro does not have to be in the workbook that you have active when you want to run the macro, but that macro has to be in an open workbook for you to be able to run it. You can have thousands of macros. The only ones that are available are the ones that are in open workbooks. So the personal macro workbook is like a trick. When you record something in the personal macro workbook, Excel looks to see, is there a personal macro workbook? It's really an Excel file. Has anyone created a personal macro workbook yet on this computer? And if it says no, if it can't find it, it says, okay, I'm going to create the personal macro workbook. It just makes a workbook. The only thing special about the workbook is that it's named a particular thing, personal.xlsb, I think, and it's in a particular location that Excel knows to look for. The trade-off is, from this day henceforth until forever, every time you open Excel, Excel will automatically open that personal macro workbook and hide it. It'll be a workbook that's open and hidden. Why does it open that workbook? Because any code that's in any open workbook you have access to. It will just do that automatically for you.
Can you delete it later?
Can you delete it later? Yeah, if you can find it, you can delete it. And it's not that hard to find. So let's go ahead and do it here, and then we'll delete it. Those of you who want to delete it, we'll delete it. We'll put it in the personal macro workbook, and I'll put a description. Create a sheet, and I'll format it to receive a customer complaint. Those of you who have not had me before will very quickly learn I'm pretty bad on the keyboard. That's really by design, to allow you to catch up. That's the whole purpose. Okay, now, when I say okay, I've got to be careful because now everything I do is being recorded by Excel. Well, even before I press OK, everything I do is being recorded in heaven. But now it's being recorded by Excel as well. Okay, so I'm going to be careful. Now, what happens if I do something I didn't mean to do? Well, if you don't know anything about VBA, you stop, you start again. But if you know about VBA, you go, oh, you know what? I can edit the code. I can edit that little bit. It's like repentance. I can edit that little line out, and it will be as if it never happened. Okay, so I'm going to create a new sheet. So I'm just going to click on the little plus sign down here and make a new sheet. That makes that new sheet the active sheet. And I'm going to want to start doing what I'm doing here in cell B2. So I'll click on B2. I've now recorded 2 lines of code. We'll go look at it. One says, make a new sheet. One says, select cell B2. And now that I'm there, I'm going to put in customer number or customer ID. And then I'll come down and I'll put date. In fact, probably a way to put the date in there. There's a formula. Oh, who knows the formula to put in the date? Let's do this. Is it just today? You'll find out I'm fabulous with VBA, but like using Excel like a normal human, not so much. T-O-D-A-Y. And do I put the parentheses on? Yeah. Okay, pretty good. Now, I don't want that to be a formula because that's not going to update to today's date. So what can I do? I'll copy it, and then I'll do a paste special, paste values. I'll paste on the values. And so now I've gotten rid of the formula. I don't want this to update anytime after this, but now I've given myself the date. It's going to stay as a date. That's great. I'll come back here to, I'll come back to B3 because I realize I left the colon off. That's okay. I'll come in here and I'll put the colon onto date. If your colon is already there, that's fine. Otherwise, put it there. Hit enter. Right, what else am I going to put in here? Complaint, colon, source, colon, resolution. Okay, enter. Now I'm going to go ahead and double click. I'm going to auto size the column, so I'll double click on the right hand side of that column and that'll stretch that out. And I want these to be bold. So I'll select that and press Control B. And then I want this to end up on C2. So I'll go there, and now I'm done. I stop recording. Very important to remember to stop recording. One time in the late 90s, I was recording a macro. And my wife called me. It was like some problem with the plumber who was doing some work at our house. A 10-minute phone call or something. And I was so unnerved by the call that I forgot I was recording a macro. What was I doing? I don't remember what I was doing. I got back to work. And I worked in Excel for like 2 more hours before I realized I was still recording the macro. It was this long, glorious, thousands of lines of code. I felt so productive. It's worthless, but it's important. You got to remember to stop recording. So it turns out you can go back to the developer tab, and the button that used to say record macro now says stop recording. But you'll notice right down here, there's a little square down there, and you can stop that as well. So it's like in case this one breaks, you've got a spare backup right here. Do you see that, or is it behind my head? Right there. In fact, you'll notice that once you've stopped, it looks like the same button that the record macro button looks like as well. So you can just start recording down there once you've got the developer tab in place in your picture. Now, I put a hot, this is sheet 1. I put a hotkey on this of Control-Shift-C, so I should be able to press Control-Shift-C and get another sheet all formatted like that. Oh, that's pretty good, but what did I miss? Probably should extend this one out as well. Do a little auto. Now, if I didn't know anything about VBA, I'd be like, oh, start again, record again. But our next step now is to take a look at what we recorded and see if we can comprehend it. Here's the great news, folks. We just did all the stuff that it recorded. And so if we can remember what we did, that's going to help us really understand this language. It's a pretty readable language, but the fact that it's recording what we just did is going to be a great help to us. Oh, by the way, how many of you have never programmed in any computer programming language before? This class is meant for you. How many of you say, you know, I've got some experience programming somewhere else? This class is also meant for you, but this is an introductory level class. There are going to be times in this class, if you're an experienced programmer, when you're going, how could you possibly spend a half hour talking about what a variable is? And it's because I want folks who've never had the experience to get it. So it might be a little painful. It's some good time to check your email. Work on homework for another class, that's okay. Don't play World of Warcraft. Be distracting to your fellow students. Okay. So let's now go take a look at where we can see that macro. There are several ways for us to get to that macro. I'm going to show you the easiest way. Well, the surest way, the easiest when you're just starting. On the Developer tab, here gives me, this macros will bring up a list of all my macros. How many do I have? 1. That should be pretty easy to find. There it is. There's 1. It's in this place called personal.xlsb, and it's called make a complaint. I could run this if I want. In fact, I will. I'll run it. It'll give me another sheet, all formatted the way it is. But instead of running it, I can come to my list of macros, and I can say edit. And that will not just open up my Visual Basic environment, but it will take me directly to this macro. And that can be very handy when we're just starting. I'm glad you're all seated, because one day when I was first teaching this, there happened to be a young lady who was seated in the very front row, and what you're about to see will be somewhat frightening, and she let out, if you could believe it, an audible gasp. Excel is about to look very different than you've ever seen it look before. Edit. There's another gasp. I just had a gasp. Turns out you've got to make it visible first. This is the first time I've put something in the personal macro workbook for more than a decade. So let's go to View, Unhide, and let's unhide Personal XLSB. So here's Personal XLSB. It's just a normal old workbook, but it's hidden. It opens hidden. So now we'll try it again. So I'm going to come back to Developer tab, list of my macros, and edit. There we go. Oh my gosh. What have I gotten myself into? Is it too late to drop the class? No, it's not. And the 12 people on the waiting list will thank you. Okay, so let's take a look at the structure. Here's the name of the macro, make a complaint. It is in a particular structure called a sub procedure. Starts with the keyword sub, ends with the keyword sequence, end sub. Everything between sub and end sub is part of this macro. In VBA lingo, it is part of the sub procedure. It has then the name of the macro, and then it's got these 2 parentheses. Those 2 parentheses will become very helpful to us later in life. But for now, just believe they need to do that. Now, anything that starts with a single quote is just a comment. It's a note to some future programmer about what this does. So the macro recorder has given us some notes here. It's kind of nice. In case you missed it 2 lines earlier, it's telling you this is the make complaint macro. You might have missed it there. We gave you that comment. This one's helpful, right? This is the comment that I typed in. It was there. And remember, I assigned a shortcut key. So what do you think? If I change it to Control plus Shift plus M, is that going to change how this macro gets run? No, because this is just a comment. I can change that. I got to go back to a different place to change it. But this is just a comment. It's for human eyes only. The computer sees that single quote and it skips. It's like, yeah, I don't need that stuff. It's for mortals. We don't need it. And so here is the very first line of code that we record. Can you read it? Does it make sense? Here's the way this works. This language is an object-based language. It means we're going to identify some object. Here's a thing. And then we're going to say dot, and we'll do some activity with it. That activity might be a statement by itself, called a method, or it might be just a value that we're going to change, or that we're going to read from that object. But it's object dot something. It's the main way this goes. Yes?
Is it true if you run a macro, you cannot undo?
Is it true that when you run a macro, you cannot undo? When you record a macro,
When you run one.
and when you run it, it kills the undo stack. With a little more advanced programming, you could read that undo stack at the beginning of your macro, run the macro, and put the undo stack back in place. And you could push things onto that undo stack to undo what the macro did. That's insane. Don't do that. If you really had to do that, you could. But yeah, by default, once you run the macro, it blows away the undo stack. And there is no good reason for that. It does that. Okay. So, this is actually a collection. This says out of all the sheets, this is a collection of all the sheets, we're going to run a method called add. We're giving it an instruction. We're telling that set of sheets to do something it knows how to do. It knows how to add a new member of itself. And then it takes a parameter. It says, well, where do you want to add it? We're going to put it after the active sheet. Did we do anything special to tell it to go after the active sheet? No. That's the default behavior. But could I change this to put it to go before the active sheet? What do you think I would do? Before. That's the French spelling. Before active sheet. And I think that would do it. Once we learn how to refer to other sheets, we could say, you know what? Put it at the very first place. I don't care what sheet's at. Put it in the first slot. Or put it in the very end slot. We could do all that stuff. I'm going to leave it the way it was. Primarily because I'm a little upset that didn't capitalize the B before. Put it as after. I don't want it to capitalize there too. Yeah, go ahead.
Is VBA case sensitive?
Is VBA case sensitive? And the answer is typically not. So it doesn't matter. So I can put this sheets here in lowercase. No problem. I can put this sheets in lowercase. I can put it in all uppercase. Not case sensitive, but in this case, what the editor is kind of nice. What the editor is doing is every time you type a line, the editor looks at it and goes, "Can I figure out what he's doing here?" Or she is doing. How many she's doing? She. I'll do something to get more she's in the class. It's a much better looking class that way. I gotta look at you people. Anyway, it looks at the line and it says, "I'm trying to figure out what he or she is doing." And if it understands it, it goes, "Sheets, I know what that is." It'll tell you that by putting it in a proper case. That's why I was a little bit disturbed that it didn't do this for after, because that's a word that I think it should have known, but that's okay. Anyway, the first thing we did was we added a sheet, and we could tell it where to go. What if we didn't tell it where to go? It would probably still go there as a default position anyway. I'd probably get rid of that and it would still work. Okay, the next thing I did was I selected that range B2. You might think of it as a cell, but in VBA we think of it as a range with only one cell in it. It's kind of like having a set with one element in it. Is that still a set? Yeah. It's just, it's a set. So here we refer to this as a range. And there's lots of ways that we can refer to ranges. So here we go. So with this thing that we identified, we selected, make it active. Then, in the active cells formula, This R1C1 just tells us the particular notation it recorded it with. We'll learn about it later, maybe. It says we're putting this value into the formula property of the active cell. We're selecting a different cell. We're putting in this into the active cell. We're selecting a different cell. We're putting something else into the active cell. This is really normal for recording. Select the cell and then do something with the active cell. Go ahead.
Why is there parentheses after?
After.
So she's to add after parentheses. Or sorry, not parentheses, colon.
Colon.
That's what I meant.
That's the notation for a named argument. We'll talk about that syntax later in life. Today's our first day. Here into the formula, we put the formula equals today. Then we selected that. We copied it. We did a paste special that has values. You see it happening? Oh. We selected some stuff. We put some more stuff in. We selected the entire column. Oh, we selected B7, and then with the entire column, we did an autofit. And then we selected arrange, made it bold. We selected C2. That's everything we did. How many of you look at this going, that's not too bad to read? Yeah, it really isn't. We can record some stuff that's bad to read. This isn't it. Yeah. We're getting started here. All right. Questions? Yep.
How do we remove it?
Oh, how do we get rid of the personal macro workbook? All right, we've got the personal macro workbook unhidden. All you have to do is say File, Save As. Oops, maybe just File. Does it tell us where it is? Yeah, here it is. Here's the path to it. That's the folder that it's in. Go find that path and delete the workbook that's there. So just use File Explorer, go find that and delete it. Delete the whole workbook. Yep.
Isn't in the long run, like a lot of files selecting the least effective?
In the long run, if you have a lot of files, will it?
Like a lot of rows selecting seems to be the least effective.
Oh, believe me, we can get much more efficient than this macro got recorded, and we will. So yeah, absolutely. We'll take one more question, then we'll dismiss. Or we'll dismiss. Thanks for coming. I will see you on Wednesday. Your homework will be posted by tonight, and it will be Wednesday by midnight, by 11:59 p.m. Thanks for coming. Class dismissed.
So you have to find where it is.